Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Star Trek in the 32nd century and how technology really hasn't evolved that much from like the other shows, which is kind of disappointing. Um, yeah, so as you all know, ever since Star Trek Discovery has been in the third season, it's been in the 32nd century. So, and that was probably the smartest thing they could do because Star Trek Discovery retconned so many things, especially their technological stuff, that should never have existed back in the 22nd century. So, wait, was it the 22nd century or was it the 23rd? I don't know, whenever TOS was around. So like when they jumped into the future, it was kind of like cool, man. Like what kind of like technological advances has Starfleet came up with? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody was stoked to see, and some things have been advanced, and then some other things are kind of like, well, okay, that's cool, that makes sense. But other things were kind of like, well, that makes absolutely no sense. And then now in season 4 they keep bringing up all this stuff from like the Star Trek Picard show and the older shows, and it's just kind of like, really, you're using outdated technology from 800 years ago? And then all of a sudden, it's like you don't see no more technological advances. And then when you look around the ships, and I know Discovery's been retrofitted, but and not all completely the way. But then when you go to like Starfleet Command, and it's kind of like, okay, well, that's no different than season 1 of Discovery. So what has been advanced? Let's find out. So the transporter is cool because now they have mobile transporters and their comm badges. No longer do they have to go to like the transporter room and do what they have to do. Now all they have to do is tap their comm badge a certain way and think of where they want to go, and they can go there. Actually, instead, let's just talk about the comm badge itself instead of transporter. So yeah, it's the comm badge. It's been very advanced. Mobile transporters, also your comm badge, of course, can talk to anybody you want to in that ship or in that facility and stuff. Also, the comm badge is a tricorder, which we never really see them use as a tricorder that much. It's very rare. They did it a little bit in the third season, not so much in the fourth. Let's see what else. I think that's all the comm badge can do. And so in season 3, but when it comes to the mobile transporters, here's the problem with it. You never really see too many people use their transporter to get around, like on the ship. And you think they would, cause they like you shouldn't. Here's the thing. Nobody on Discovery or in Starfleet Command should be walking around. Period. You should just be able to teleport wherever you want. Now, yeah, that will probably drain the battery of the thing. That's probably why they don't do it all the time. But think about it. It's kind of a shock and a wow moment when you see somebody actually do it. Like when I saw Stamets do it a couple of episodes ago in season 4, it's like, oh yeah, they have that ability. So why is Saru and Tilly walking around the corridors and stuff? However, it seems to be the mobile transporter. This seems to be a recurring gag, like a little joke thrown in. Because think about it. In season 3, they let you know they had that ability. And then you saw, I think Linus is his name. He kept using it, and it was like a comedic moment. Then in season 4, you only see somebody use it like one time. And you normally see the villains use it, but that's about it. And then when it comes to certain situations, like say the first episode of season 4, when Book and Burnham was on that planet and they were being attacked, why didn't they just teleport to Book's ship? Or why didn't they just teleport down to the planet? They had that ability. Nothing was stopping them. There was no dampening field, I think, that prevented them from transporting the whole thing. And then not only that, but there was like an evacuation scene recently, and it's kind of like, well, why didn't you use the mobile transporters then? Why are you using the shuttle pod and stuff? Also, when that one officer, that captain dude, was fighting the, I can't believe I said the Wakanda warriors name. I think it's called the Quat Malat, something like that. The Navarre or whatever, the Vulcan, Romulan, like super nun assassin people. Like when he was fighting her, why didn't he just teleport all around her to confuse her so she wouldn't know where he would like go? And why did he run to go get the phaser when he could have teleported there? also, I thought they could teleport their phasers in their hands. So why did he run and go get one? So I don't understand that. So it is, so that is a cool advancement they have, but they don't use it the way that they should, you know? And so I don't get that aspect of it. Okay, something that did not advance. Phasers. Not the ship phasers, because I don't think we've seen Discovery get into like a space battle since season 2, I don't think. Like, I don't recall them ever firing on anything in season 3 or season 4. So that's kind of disappointing because I love space battle, but I don't love Discovery or the new Trek space battle because it happens way too fast and everything's bopping around and you don't know where nothing's at. Anyway, so not the ship phasers. I'm talking about like the handheld kind. It's not that much of an advancement, and because think about it, it's like in Star Trek Discovery, they retcon what a phaser beam should look like. No longer is it a long straight beam. Now it's like these short projectiles, similar to that of like Star Wars and stuff. And so that took the fun out of like phasers. And then I don't know what a torpedo looks like in New Trek because everything just looks the way phasers do. That little short projectile line that just bounces around everywhere. And so they retcon what a hand phaser is supposed to, like the projectile is supposed to come out, because it's nothing but a short blast that comes out. It's no longer a long beam. And now when we go to the 32nd century, it's still the same exact thing. So that never advanced from like all the way back in season 1 of Discovery. So that's a huge disappointment. I know the same thing can be said also about Voyager 29th century phaser. It just shoots out a regular phaser beam, which they should have then made that into a projectile type thing. But I guess, you know, they didn't have time to like make it, and they had like the regular beams on like stock, so why not use that? So yeah, I got a problem with the one from Voyager. I got a problem with the one here in Discovery. Also, even though the phaser does look cool and everything, it's still a handheld phaser similar to that of a pistol gun. And that's something, of course, was used in like Discovery and TOS. But here's the problem I have with that. Gene Roddenberry never wanted the phaser to look like a gun. He always wanted it to look like something from the future. That's why in TNG, it started to look like a wand type thing. And that's the way it's been for so many series. And then Voyager in the 29th century, even though they went back to the handheld gun looking thing, it still looked futuristic and everything. Like it was a combination of like an old phaser with some stuff attached to it, but in the handheld gun like thing. It was a bit bulky, but it was still cool looking. No, the guns in Discovery still look, the phasers in Discovery still look cool. And they still do look like they're from the future and everything. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. I kind of wish they would have like lived up to Gene Roddenberry's vision and not have it be like a handheld gun. They could have done something different, like maybe it's something attached to the wrist and shoot out like the Borg and stuff. Warp drive. Now we know because of the burn, nobody had the lithium and nobody went to warp and all this other stuff. So we don't know exactly how fast these ships can go. One thing that did change is I can't even call this an advancement because I don't know what the purpose of this is for. It's the nacelles. They are attached to the ship and then they detach from the ship. And there's no explanation as to why that is, you know what I'm saying? Like what purpose does that serve other than being visually like appealing because it's far in the future? If it has no purpose, then it's just stupid. So that's not an advancement whatsoever. I know Voyager had the nacelles go up when they went into warp. For the longest time, nobody knew why, and then finally the creators are like, "Oh yeah, we forgot to mention this, but it has to do with that one TNG episode about warp drive destabilizing like space and disrupting that one like homeworld and stuff like that." So that was the reason why they did it in that. But Voyager is the only ship that does that. I like to say that Voyager is a magical ship because no other ship in Starfleet has this technology. I've never seen any TNG movies or DS9 stuff where they had binaural gel packs. Like, where are those at? They're supposed to be in every ship, but they're not. So Voyage is a special case. But yeah, as far as the nacelles, not an advancement. Replicators, I don't call that an advancement either. They've never explained in the older Star Trek series how replicators work. Like literally, how in the world do they work? But it's some type of like synthetic like mess that the ship creates. I guess out of particles of light or whatever. I don't know. But in Discovery, they finally said, "Oh yeah, our replicators like it just comes from our poop. Like we poop, and the ship like uses the essence of like what's in the poop and the minerals and all that other stuff to recreate and shape like food and like all this other stuff. So that's why like Vance never had a real apple. And when he gave them apple to that lady, she was just basically just eating like recycled poop. And I guess that was supposed to be like I guess that kind of could make sense because they're in the future and they do have toilets, but they never talk about it. And it has to go somewhere. So, and then we know in Voyager they recycle a lot of their toxic material waste. So I guess that could make sense. But then again, they could just recycle the toxic stuff from the warp stuff and make that into like the replicators. But I don't know. They've never explained it. So in my opinion, it's not an advancement. It's probably just the same thing. Also with the replicators, the way it creates stuff is still the same way it creates stuff in like say the Picard series. Now back in the good old days when you had like a replicator, it swirls around and all this like transportery looking like stuff materializes something. But then in Picard, it's shown that you have these little laser lights that graph stuff and make things. Well, guess what? They still did that when they made Gray's body, so that don't make no sense. So their replicator system is so outdated. Now the spore drive console, the little control things, that has improved now to where it's less painful for the user, and instead of it injecting into like your wrist or forearms or whatever, now you just place your hand in some weird goopy stuff. So that's a big improvement. They don't explain what exactly happens, but you know, I guess it's some type of neural gel that links to your brain or something like that. If so, why doesn't it go like to your brain? So I don't know. Holograms, and this is the one that's a little bit confusing. Okay, so in Discovery Season 1, they retconned the view screen and said that they have holographic projection of people so they can talk to them. That still goes on in Discovery today in the 32nd century. When we see people talk to them, it's still via hologram. But now instead of the hologram walking around the ship, now it cuts off your midsection and it looks like a projectile from that of a view screen, but it's still a hologram. So that's not an advancement right there. See, Discovery screwed everything up when they started doing hologram this and hologram that. Now, the holograms in the 32nd century, apparently they still have the same flaws that from the older days, from like 800 years ago, which I didn't know this was a flaw. Apparently you can blink your eyes really fast and it can disrupt the matrix in the hologram, which is stupid and makes no sense. And that dude said, oh, we still have this same problem from like blah, 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 blah years ago. So it's kind of like you didn't advance that. Like, why not over 800 years? And also that's a dumb flaw to even have in it. Also with the holograms, apparently you can now make solid holograms to where you can put this device on your head and you can be anywhere you want, even on a shuttlecraft that's doing something, and it's a solid hologram, so you have the ability to touch stuff. Did they forget about hologram technology from the TNG days in the 24th century in Voyager? Because the doctor in Voyager literally explained to Tom Paris that he can be solid when he wants to and not be. That's how he's able to hold stuff in his hand like a tricorder and other medical stuff. And so it's kind of like and he even showed Tom Paris, he's all like, hit me. And then so Tom Paris' hand went completely through the Doctor when he made himself not solid. And then he made himself solid again when he smacked Tom Paris. So they've already had solid holograms, a projection of light back in the day. So this is not an advancement. This is literally the writers just trying to come up with whatever sci-fi thing they can. Actually, I want to touch down a bit more on the holograms. The medical holograms. Why is it they talk with no personality? They talk like mindless robotic automatons. Now we know the Doctor was a very advanced medical like hologram. He had a personality, not at first, but he still had a grumpy personality. But then he had a huge personality when he started playing around with his Matrix. So why is it that these sound like robotic people that are just like programmed to say these certain things? Their expressions are weird. Also, like, are all medical people in Starfleet in the 32nd century now holograms now? That's the way they try to make it seem like. So why hasn't Discovery been fitted with one? Since the Doctor is now a counselor for some bizarre reason. Like, it don't make no sense and stuff. So it's kind of like, I don't understand how the hologram, and if you go to the holodeck, you can program a holographic character that have more personality than these things do. Remember DS9, the little bartender dude who sings and stuff like that? He had a whole lot of personality. He was advanced and everything. So I don't understand like how the technology slipped over like 800 years and stuff. Tricorders. Now, I've already talked about how the tricorders in your combat, and that is an advancement in itself. But for some reason, the Doctor still has a handheld tricorder, and his tricorder apparently is also a thermal regenerator. So that right there is an advancement, to have the tricorder be both the healing tool and stuff. One thing I do is kind of weird. It's like it's like this big holographic screen with words on, talking about deceased or something like that. And I remember thinking to myself, ever since Nemesis came out, they've been like on like computer monitor screen, they've always been putting like words in big bold letters so you know exactly what things are, and they simplified the graphics so you know what things are, which back in the older days they would have like this weird stuff bouncing around the screen. You didn't know what stuff was, but you're like, oh, okay, advancement right there. It's so advanced that you have to learn what these objects are on the screen. Now everything's simplified and stuff. But still having the tool be like to heal people and scan people is pretty much an advancement. Okay, let's see. The holographic computer display screens and like buttons and all this other crap. I don't get why it still looks the way it does in like, say, the first season of Discovery. So like basically like inside Discovery, when you're tapping away at like your console and this and that, you can also tap away at like the holographic like Tony Stark type stuff. And okay, I know Discovery hasn't been like fully retrofitted, but even when you go to Starfleet Command, you still see those same holographic computer monitors everywhere. And they're able to touch it and do this the same way they were since season 1 of Discovery. So why not upgrade that tech to the programmable matter crap? Isn't that what it was for? Their shuttlecraft pods. First of all, their shuttle pods look ugly. I'm just putting that out now. Voyager had great shuttles, and so did DS9, and so did the next gen movies. So how did they go down to this weird looking pod thing? However, in this weird looking pod thing, in case you didn't notice, it still has the big old like window thing that like Discovery has. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a window, as one of the creators said. It's a window. And crap. And so they still have that. And when you look inside this pod, did you see the comm panel? It looks even more outdated than that of TOS. Like, it was so plain and boring. It's kind of like, so they haven't upgraded anything from the 21st century, like the century we're living in now. Like, I don't get that. Androids. So all of a sudden they still have androids in the 32nd century. Only problem is they're the same ones used from the Star Trek Picard series. And they said the reason why they really don't use these to transfer a consciousness into them is because there isn't that much of a high success rate. So they're still using 800-year-old tech for these androids and stuff. And I don't get that. Like, why are you using outdated technology? Especially if y'all haven't, because think about it, 800 years has passed. You should be able to transfer everybody consciousness by now in an android. But yet the technology is so rare. Like, I don't understand that. Now, I guess one improvement could be the cloak that Starfleet hides in. However, they had cloaking technology in like the 24th century. And I think maybe even back in the TOS days with certain like species and stuff. So cloaking in itself isn't that advanced. I don't, so they keep themselves in like a little bubble. But you know, they're still using cloaking technology from back in the day. It just looks more like advanced now. So I don't know, like I don't really know what they could have done with the cloak. I don't know if that could be an advancement or not, especially if they had cloaking technology back in like the older days. And maybe if they could do something like, I don't know, like use that programmable matter crap. Like say that, like I don't know, like disassemble molecules and make them like really tiny or something like that. I don't know, like or shrink people instead of cloaking. Just shrink people and shrink like a space station or whatever, or a ship like really tiny. And then so they can't see you. And then when you want to reappear, you go bigger. You know what I'm saying? Like that's something they was experimenting in DS9, but it never been perfected. You know. Now, one advancement is the design of a star ship. However, we don't know like why these designs took place and why it looks the way it does. Because they don't bother to go like and tell us all that much stuff. Also, I don't think we've even really seen the inside of one. I think maybe one time, but it was more like what them things called? Not a garden, but a place where you put like a garden, like a greenhouse type thing. It was basically like a greenhouse ship. And also, it was like on a different no, I think that was a different species ship. So yeah, we've never seen the inside of an actual starship and everything. So we don't really know like why the ship looks the way it does, but I can call that an advancement of why the ship is more like more sleeker looking and stuff. So I guess yeah, the outer hull is sleeker for whatever reasons, and that is an advancement. Like I said before, the ship phases. We don't know what the world that looks like. And it's probably going to look like just regular first season Discovery type stuff. Now let's get into the 29th century when it came to that their time technology. As we all know now, time travel is forbidden. So they have not improved on that. What's interesting is that even in that small one episode of Voyager, the computer panels were like totally different. You can like, instead of touching it, you just move them with your hand away from like the screen monitor and it moves stuff. I like that. That was cool. That still looked like Trek. It had a different noise that it made. The computer panels made like different noises. And they had this type of phaser blast thing, a destructor type thing that can shift you out of space and time that he used on Voyager. And you don't see nothing that advanced in the 32nd century. The computer panels still sound the same, like from TOS for some bizarre reason. They don't have no cool like phaser that can destruct the ship and separate it or nothing like that from space time because they're not allowed to use time travel. And it's just like, it's weird. Like, Starfleet looked more advanced in the 29th century in that one Voyager episode than it ever did in like, you know, the 32nd century. Also, remember that one episode of Enterprise when I think Daniels came from the 31st century or something like that? Remember how advanced that technology looked? Remember how advanced that Enterprise, I think it was like J or something like that, looked? And it's weird like that actually looked like a Starfleet ship that was also an alien ship. And it's kind of like, and also the 29th century ships from Voyager, the time ships, those did not look like typical Starfleet ships. They look so alien. So I take that back when I said the outer hull is advanced, because it's not. Because think about it, you have like Daniel ship, or that Enterprise ship, and then you have like them time ships. They look more advanced than whatever it is in like Discovery. So I take that back. The hulls are not advanced and everything. The ships are not advanced. Now the biggest technological advancement they have is the programmable matter. And that's something really huge that they never had none of the other Star Trek shows. And we started to see a little bit more of that in the third season. However, in the fourth season, it's kind of disappeared. Like, you really don't see nothing used for it. You don't see computer panels used for it. We did get to see Burnham use it to navigate like something. And she used her hands to do like this and that instead of holding on to like a button. I mean, holding on to like a handle, control handle, or like pressing buttons. So the programmable matter is very advanced. I don't understand why more stuff isn't used for it, like for view screens and just all kind of other stuff, you know. I guess because they don't have the money for that, so that's probably why. The programmable tether line thing, sure, that's an advancement. I mean, it's basically just a tractor beam. A tractor beam with nothing but projected light that held on to something really tight. But the thing about the tether line is that it can like move in different shapes and curve around stuff, and a tractor beam could never do that. So that's a very like good technological advancement. Something else that's not advanced, the wheelchair. Now, we found out that, you know, in TOS that they have wheelchairs, and then they decided to have one in Discovery. And then it was Pike that was in the wheelchair. Now they did that flash forward in Discovery to show Pike in like his wheelchair bound self when he gets like injured and stuff. And you know, so they did like a nice homage to that in Discovery. However, now they're in the 32nd century, and there's that one guy I talked about who was in a wheelchair. Not only is he in a wheelchair in the 32nd century, but it's a redressed wheelchair from the one Pike had in the Discovery episode, which is just a remodeled version of the one in TOS. And it's kind of like, in all these years, why does it still look the same way it did 900 years ago? Not only that, but with all the programmable matter and scientific advancements, how are people still paraplegic in the 32nd century? Like, you think they would be able, plus now remember, like, Worf had his back broken, his spine broken, and they fixed it to where he could walk again. So that technology is available and stuff. In the programmable matter, you think they'll be able to fuse something to the spinal column or whatever it is that made the person paraplegic and make them able to walk, especially with all the advancements they have now. And so I don't understand why in 32nd century they still have people like in wheelchairs, and why the wheelchair still looks the way it does from TOS days and stuff. Okay, let's talk about these little combat vest thing that they still wear, which apparently still looks the same way they do in season 1. I'm pretty sure I saw some other Starfleet officers in the actual 32nd century wear some too. And it's kind of like, why are they still wearing these stupid little phaser-proof vest things? Why don't they have like mobile like force fields? Think about it. In TNG, Worf was in the holodeck and he came up with a force field to go around your body, like a little cone shape, and to stop like holographic bullets from hitting him. And so it's kind of like, okay, apparently that technology wasn't a thing in TNG in the 24th century, but it could have been. So how come many years later they didn't try to perfect that, and instead of wearing those stupid little vest things? I don't get that. Like, you think they would have that and stuff. I know the force fields around the ship have advanced to where this grid-like pattern, like a honeycomb shape type thing, a hexagon, but what purpose does it serve other than just looking cool? It seems that they still work the same way they do in the 24th century, so yeah, not an advancement whatsoever. Now, one little advancement is that little pod thing that goes around the captain's chair when you want to mute a conversation and everything. That's new. I guess that is an advancement because can't nobody hear you outside of it. Because they don't want to go to the ready room and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, okay, fine, I'll give that some points. That's an advancement. It's a kind of a stupid one. You could just literally teleport to your ready room and then teleport back. But you know, whatever. And so I don't get why we're not seeing all this cool tech in the 32nd century other than everything glowing blue with lens flares and stuff. And it's kind of like that's what Discovery screwed up in the first century. They gave us so much high-tech advancement in Discovery season 1 that now everything in the 32nd century looks obsolete and everything. And they're using outdated technology. I still don't understand how things in that one Voyager relativity episode and like that one episode of Enterprise, 31st and 29th century stuff look more advanced than it does now in the 32nd century. It's like, and these supposed to be like some great like show creators and special effects people. Well, give us some good special effects. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.